Sort of like, it feels like, let's say Magic the Gathering is like chess. Magic the Gathering is chess. That's like your basic bread and butter card game, right? It's like chess and it's like checkers. What's checkers? I don't know. What's like some other shitty basic card? Like Pokemon, right? Pokemon is checkers. Magic the Gathering is chess. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Like, you play chess and you're like, pawn e4. And then Yu-Gi-Oh! Is just like, Block Dragon Special Summon Needle Fiber.
There are a few different trading card games to choose from when you first enter the hobby. And in the trading card game community, it's pretty evident the ladder of popularity in terms of the mainstay trading card games. The top three are pretty obviously Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic, and Pokemon. Now, even though all three games are extremely popular at this point, I would say both Magic and Pokemon hold a pretty fair lead in terms of popularity over Yu-Gi-Oh! Today, I really want to explore the differences between the card games, especially centering around why I enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh! And the mechanics it brings to the table in duality with the other more popular games of the current day. The most obvious thing that differentiates Yu-Gi-Oh! From Magic and Pokemon is, simply put, how the organizers manage the given card pool. Magic and Pokemon continue to use rotation for their standard format, making sets illegal for play after a certain amount of time has passed since their release. Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually made the choice way back when it was introduced to not rotate sets, and rather introduce solely a forbidden list to manage the balance of the format. This choice to avoid rotation, in my opinion, is the best choice the management of the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG has made to date, and one of the main reasons Yu-Gi-Oh! Holds my attention far longer than games like Magic or Pokemon, at least in the standard formats. The massive card pool often leads to incredibly creative, innovative strategy and gameplay that can really only be found in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because of the massive card pool and the ridiculous amount of interaction and decision making that forms when there are 20 years worth of cards to choose from whenever you're building or playing against any given deck. Now, I have heard players suggest that in order to better balance Yu-Gi-Oh!, that Konami should nowadays introduce rotation. And even though I understand the notion and where the people arguing that point are coming from, I would argue that rotation really does defy the spirit of what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is. More than any other card game, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has always embraced freedom, both in terms of gameplay and deck building, and I think a step toward rotation is really a step away from Yu-Gi-Oh! Really being Yu-Gi-Oh! Speaking of freedom and how Yu-Gi-Oh! Really does encourage it in comparison to a game like Magic or Pokemon, the concept of a resource system in general, in contrast to both Pokemon and Magic, just simply doesn't exist in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! In a game like Magic, it isn't particularly unlikely of a scenario that you can take a look at your 7-card hand and really nothing can be played, at least for a few turns. No real progressive action can be taken. Now, due to most cards and actions in games with resource systems having resource-related costs, the games are both slowed significantly and are far less interesting overall, at least in my opinion. I know that the concept of a resource system doesn't necessarily mean the games are slow inherently. In both Pokemon and Magic, there are ways to accelerate your resources early. Regardless of these possibilities, though, the resource system in general is a restrictive mechanic and can really take a toll on how much can be played at any given time. You will never see that in Yu-Gi-Oh! Especially nowadays. Oftentimes decks will find that every card in their hand can be played on the first turn, or at least ready to be played. People may argue that this is a bad thing, and honestly it might be, but regardless, it certainly is a thing that truly does differentiate Yu-Gi-Oh! From the competition. This is the part of Yu-Gi-Oh! That I think I enjoy the most when I think about why I enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh! So much in comparison to other games. Resource systems, in my opinion, are a rough thing that not many games have really gotten right yet, if any have at all, really. I'm glad Yu-Gi-Oh! Has avoided the system entirely, as it really does make the game feel a lot better to play in general. never really mana flooded or dry, always able to initiate plays, or at least attempt to, with the cards in your hand. The last and arguably the most important difference between Yu-Gi-Oh! And the other games in the same sphere is something a lot less tangible than a resource system or a rotation. Yu-Gi-Oh! More than any other card game I have played really does the concept of interacting with your opponent the best. When you play a game of Yu-Gi-Oh!, it truly is you versus your opponent. Everything you strive towards building and controlling has to do with the opponent and how you can disrupt their strategy while working to the end goal of getting their life points to 0. I know this concept of interaction is a lot less prevalent in some modern matchups, specifically the more combo-oriented ones. However, I do think over the course of time, Yu-Gi-Oh! Really has come to be the game that lives and dies in terms of enjoyment by the amount of interaction within the game. A good game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is you and your opponent going back and forth, reading one another's position, and playing into and through their resources. In a game like Pokemon, you do have cards that affect the opponent, but you're pretty much never interacting with them while they play their cards. Magic has more of this interaction between turns, but not nearly enough to come close to what Yu-Gi-Oh! Achieves. While games like Magic and Pokemon can suffer from feeling very much so like turn-based combat, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has never had this issue. Matchups like the infamous Sky Striker Mirror are the best modern examples of this heavy emphasis on interaction. You play so many cards to interact and twist the opponent's strategy during their turn, sometimes you can really get lost in whose turn it actually is. A thing that is less prevalent now, but more so in older formats when playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the emphasis on trap cards and the interplay that comes with having to play into variable unknowns. I think, at least in older variations of the game, this is almost the defining separation between Yu-Gi-Oh! And other games, because so much of what you do and how you play depends on what you read those set cards as being. This leads to the ability to bluff, read your opponent, and a lot of other really interesting interactions that I think are a lot more present in Yu-Gi-Oh! Compared to any game like it. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is certainly not a perfect game. The people who love the game the most absolutely know that. But there are definitely a lot of things that Yu-Gi-Oh! Does that it either does the best or that are simply completely unique to the game. If you haven't tried playing the game and you're coming over from another community, I cannot suggest it more. This is certainly not a video to rag on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitors. I just want to make that clear. I do actually play all 3 games to various degrees. I really did just want to explore what exactly makes me enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh! So much more in comparison to these other systems. So now I really want to pose the question to the viewers. What's the reason you've chosen Yu-Gi-Oh! As your main game over others? I'm really interested in seeing what people have to say, because over time I've seen so many different answers when this question has been posed. Before I end, I want to say quickly that I really do appreciate all the support my videos have been getting recently. I really appreciate you guys. All the nice comments and the new subs are truly, truly appreciated. And I really can't thank you guys enough. It means a lot to see people watching and enjoying the stuff that I've created. And until next time, guys, thank you for watching and goodbye.